Hello and welcome back to another episode of Redefining Moments. I'm your host Kelly, and today I am here to talk to you about humour and when does it cross the line. Now, I don't know about you, but there's a few moments in my life where I've realised I am in the midst of a joke, but it makes me feel uncomfortable. Or in some situations, someone makes a statement and I tell them that's not okay or that makes me feel uncomfortable, and the person goes, "Oh, it's just a joke, get over it," or "You can't take a joke." And I realised that this is a deflection of actually accepting that something's made someone feel uncomfortable and it might not be appropriate, and it's a defensive strategy. But I've been thinking a lot about humour, and I'm someone who loves sometimes inappropriate humour, sometimes humour that crosses the boundaries. Like, I have a very immature sense of humour at times, and sometimes I have a very mature sense of humour. But occasionally there are situations where the line has been crossed, and there is either a joke at your expense, there's a joke that's out of date, or someone is making a statement, but because it hasn't been received in the way they feel it should have been received, they then become defensive and they make you feel small because it's a joke and you should laugh. And I think I've started to realise that this can be dangerous. Dismissing someone's clear boundaries through humour can be dangerous. And the reason I say this is because I noticed this within myself recently. So I had a situation last year where I was in a situation with someone who I saw as a friend, and for a while they kept making inappropriate comments. Now, because I'm used to sometimes inappropriate jokes, I pushed aside my feelings. I ignored my discomfort because I was so used to doing that with humour that I almost saw the comments as humour. And I began to dismiss my own feelings of discomfort. I put safeguarding in to give me some distance between the person and I. I only saw them with groups of individuals or at events. But at the same time, I was ignoring my genuine feelings of discomfort. And the more I ignored it, the harder it was to backtrack and say, actually, I'm really uncomfortable by what you're saying. Can you please stop? To the point that when I actually really needed to set the boundary, it wasn't acknowledged and it wasn't dismissed. So I decided to walk away. And the reason I'm telling you this is because when we ignore our feelings of discomfort when it comes to jokes, because we don't want to seem like we don't get it or we're not funny, we're actually telling our body that that behaviour is okay, that it's acceptable for someone to speak to us that way or to dismiss our feelings or to not acknowledge a wider group of individuals maybe. And we're encouraging this repetitive behaviour, this acceptance that as long as it's a joke, as long as it's funny, you can get away with it. And in truth, it's not okay. I've even had some situations in the last couple of years where I've had to actually set boundaries when it comes to a joke. So I had a circumstance where I went through a breakup and I was dealing with it emotionally, as you do. When you go through a breakup, you grieve, you feel emotional, you cry. It was the first time someone had ever broken up with me, and I was struggling with it. And people around me decided to make a joke about it, to the point that they only needed to use a single word to describe that joke to me. And the joke kept coming up whenever I was feeling emotional or vulnerable or dealing with something that wasn't going right with dating or going through another breakup. The joke kept repeating itself. And one day I decided to use the story I tell myself. Now, the story I tell myself is something I heard at a festival a few years back. And it's something also Brené Brown has mentioned in one of her talks. Now, the story I tell myself is amazing. It's such an incredible way of setting healthy boundaries with people without inflaming their ego, I guess, like aggravating their ego, because it doesn't end up being about them. You make it about yourself. So there was a situation I was in where this joke came up. And I said, you know, when you tell me that joke, when you say that joke, the story I tell myself is my feelings and emotions are not valued or validated. And then that person got defensive and they were like, no, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about us and how we respond. And I said, I understand that's how you see it. But the story I tell myself is that my emotions are not valued and I'm not allowed to feel my emotions. And what ended up happening off the back of that was this person was able to sit with my perspective of the world and understand, hold on a second, I didn't intend to make that person feel like that. I made that person feel small and not cared for as a result of my humour. And actually, I don't want to make them feel that way. So there was an apology, there was hugs. And when I said that statement, I wasn't really intending anything from it. I was just trying to share my perspective of the world with them so they understood that every time that joke was mentioned, it did hurt. But funnily enough, that joke ended up coming up with someone else a couple of years later. And I didn't even acknowledge the joke. I wasn't even provoked by it because it was no longer painful. And it's a funny one because in that situation, by sharing my honesty about how I felt about the joke, I almost healed the wound that stopped me from being exposed to the pain that was caused by that joke. So I am in two sides when it comes to jokes being inappropriate, because at the same time, the reason they can feel inappropriate, the reason they can feel painful, is because there is a wound that is exposed to begin with. But at the same time, how do we also respect our boundaries? How do we also acknowledge when someone is pushing something too far or using it as an excuse to be inappropriate or rude or dismissive and lack accountability? Now, at the end of the day, we can't control how the other person responds to our request of that joke you've just said. The story I tell myself when you say that is there's no respect. I don't feel respected. I don't feel valued. I don't feel cared for. And the key is always saying I, not you. We don't blame the other person. But I guess what happens from that point is we can lay out a boundary and give ourselves the space to walk away if that person continues to ignore how that joke makes us feel. So, for example, if someone continues to comment on a joke around weight, I've often had it around my hair colour. If someone continues to joke about something that generally makes you feel fragile as a person, that makes you feel small, and you say, the story I tell myself when you say that joke is my weight is an issue or my hair colour is an issue and I don't feel respected as a person or valued as a person when that joke is made, then if that continues, even after that's been addressed, then I would start to question, actually, do you value me? Do you truly care about me? Because I've been honest with you. I've told you my story. I've told you my perspective. And yet you still continue down that path. You still continue moving down that path that belittles me. The story that creates a narrative that makes me feel small. And from that point and perspective, we have a choice to walk away. Because if we continue to stay in an environment where those jokes are made, we continue to stay within an environment that erodes us, that chips away at our very being. Because it's just a joke, why does it matter? It's just a joke, why are you being so sensitive? But if it's just a joke, why should it make us feel small? Do not get me wrong, humour is a beautiful way to connect with other people. I think humour, the reason why we struggle when it comes to jokes and differentiating actually a safe boundary between what's acceptable and what's not, humour is a beautiful way to connect to others. And sometimes you do laugh at another person, but I feel personally it should be at someone but with someone. So for example, if someone falls over and they're laughing and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that, I'm such an idiot. For me, I love to turn an embarrassing moment into a story. The minute something embarrassing happens, I'm like, this is a great story, I've got to share this. I will literally do something, I can't even think of anything off the top of my head right now, but something will happen and I will literally message one of my friends straight away and I'll be like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what just happened. And it will turn something that's mortifying into something that's a shared experience that we can all laugh at together. Be like, oh, I did something silly today and this is what happened, or this happened to me, I can't believe it, I'm absolutely mortified, but laugh at it with me. If I fall over in the street, I literally don't even realise or recognise it anymore because I'm not embarrassed. I'm like, oh, where did my feet go there? I make a joke of it. And that's when humour can be really beautiful, when it's shared, when it's something that we can relate to. So when the comedians come on stage and they talk about, oh God, my dating experience, or this happened within my life, often we laugh hysterically because we're like, this is painfully true for myself. I can relate to this. I can resonate with it. It allows us to find common ground within the shame, within the difficult parts of our lives. But then the other side of it is when it adds to our shame. Personally, I despise humour that is at the expense of another human being. And I think many of us grew up on that type of humour, especially in the UK in the 1990s, 2000s. That was very much the humour. People picking on a part of you and making it a joke. I personally found that was a way that you express love. Like, I thought you pick on someone to express love. And in some ways, I think it's made me stronger as a person. I find I'm very open-minded towards different ways of life, different ways of being. Let's just say I'm not prudish at all. I'm very, very open-minded. The type of humour I've been exposed to has meant that I am very good at listening to people's lives without shame. Because I think sometimes when you're able to laugh about something or talk about something through humour, it means that you're able to hold space for the serious moments or the moments where people might feel they're alone. So I do think it allows us the opportunity to, I guess, desensitize ourselves to shame. Like, I know that if I ever needed to go to my parents for anything or my family for anything, I do know there are certain things I can talk to them about because I know that we have a open-minded outlook on things. But then at the same time, I also know that a lot of it gets deflected through humour. And I do find this is really, really beneficial. I think humour, it has a way of cutting through serious moments. If you go to a funeral, humour is a great way of kind of finding joy in somebody's life or reminiscing on the silly moments and just taking pride in somebody's life. It's a very good tool to bring us closer together. But there is also the two-sided coin of desensitizing ourselves too much to the point that we might not recognize another's pain beyond the surface of our humor, whether that's our own pain that we're deflecting because we are using humor to ignore very important conversations or dismiss another person's feeling, or we're using humour to pick on somebody, to highlight somebody else's flaws. And I would say that's often to deflect from our own pain once again, or our own discomfort around something, or our own fears of rejection. Humour has many layers to it, but it's when it is at the expense of a joke, where we're not able to actually have that conversation, where we do not feel that we are being heard. That's when it becomes dangerous. So, yes, humour has two beautiful sides to it. One side is the side that brings more love, more joy, more happiness. There's nothing like a deep laugh where you have lost control of your body almost. Not to the point of some people pee themselves laughing. But yeah, like when you're just in hysterics where you could barely catch your breath, it has powerful effects. I believe it stimulates our vagus nerve. It reduces stress, as far as I'm aware. Do not quote me on it, but it does have its benefits. But as I said, as long as it's not at the expense of another person. So if somebody you love says to you, that joke upsets me, this is why, listen to them, respect them, because yes, it could just mean your humour's not on the same page, but it could also just be a sensitive topic to that other person. And if it is at the expense of them, then it's not funny. So yes, I am your host, Kelly, and today I would love for you to think about how your humour benefits the people in your life. How does it benefit you? And in what cases might you be dismissing your own feelings because of somebody else's sense of humour? Because if something truly does make you feel uncomfortable, how can you start to use the story I tell myself to maybe express that discomfort? Because you should not be the butt of a joke, unless you want to be. That's totally fine. As I said, I go out with my embarrassing stories and I share them with my friends, with my family even. I'll go and tell them something silly that happened to me. But that's my choice, and that's my choice to share that with people. So what can you do to start to mend that part of yourself, to give yourself that self-trust and allow people to recognize what's okay and what's not okay? And in doing that, you might actually heal the very wound that's being triggered every time someone makes you into the joke. If you enjoyed this episode and you think someone else could benefit in their own lives as well, please share, please comment, and please tell me what you might want to hear more of. But I hope you can find the humour in your day, the joy in your life, and the laughter with those around you. And make sure that laughter always adds positivity to your life, not negativity. Until next time.